this is going to end up being. It could be anything. It could be nothing. Who knows? But here's the order of business today. I decided that today, how we're going to handle this is we are going to traverse all throughout. I'm not restarting the whole game or anything. We're not going to go that insane. But we're going to retraverse the entire game world that we can get a hold of. And go through and maybe pay some visits to some NPCs. And maybe gives them some hugs or so forth and so on. My good friend German Spy here will be handling that business, won't you? Yes, you will.
Yes. Is this hit list with which you've provided me in the order that we're gonna... Okay.
No, it's not gonna be in the order. But we might be paying them a visit for unscrupulous, some forth and so ons. Nothing suspicious. But that's the order of business today. In the course of this, I'm going to try to maintain my human form. I know that the people in stream will not be able to resist the idea of tracking me down and filling my various holes with all sorts of lovely little bits and things.
I'm already trembling with anticipation. Stop teasing me like that.
All right. But as far as the recording side of things, I've never done this quite like this, obviously, before. The VOD will be one thing. You guys may have noticed that I disabled the sounds on alerts. I'm not able to record all of that at the same time through Bandicam. And I found out that actually recording via OBS means that you can't actually separate the stream quality from the recording quality, which means that if I tried to actually record it via OBS while streaming, I would have to stream like 200 megabits per second or something insane. So we won't be doing that. But anyways, starting from Firelink Shrine. Actually, no, I should have started from the Undead Asylum. Let's do that first. Let's head to the Undead Asylum first. On our trek back through the game world, we've lost a lot of friends along the way, haven't we? Poor Petrus, poor Haircut. I kind of miss him. And Chuckles and Fuckface or whatever their names were.
Chewy?
Good old Mumbles. I like Mumbles most of all. He was my friend, and we lost him so early in life. Such a tragic end for him. So the first thing that we're going to do is go back to the Undead Asylum. If I can actually... Yes! Remember that? Remember all the good times we had at 60 frames per second? And how I could not make that jump in the playthrough? Oh, yes. Such good times what we had there. But we'll be going back through the game world and just talking about anything that we can find. I'll be trying to answer any questions that the chat happens to see in regards to the game world that they did not pick up on the first time through. This is going to be the benefit of actually doing this stream. Because a lot of the stuff that I've covered is, I was pretty comprehensive. That's for fuck's sake. And a lot of the times, hello there. I always love that shot of him looking through the bird claws. But you guys will actually have the opportunity of questioning me and demanding resolution to answers on the fly, even though I'll probably just ignore them. Yes. This is the perfect way to handle this. All right. And as for you, Mr. Spy...
Yes.
Damn hollows. You'll be here to amuse everyone while I inevitably lose my mind, which I'm sure that I'll end up doing. I thought it'd be appropriate for tonight to actually wear Kirk's armor. And as you can see, whenever... This is something I don't think I ever actually demonstrated. But whenever you actually roll into things, or flip in my case, because I'm wearing the ghastly ninja ring, you actually cause damage to things. And I forget what the scaling is exactly, but you gain more damage based on how many parts of the gear that you have equipped. With the maximum amount obviously being everything plus the helmet. Although with my weight restrictions, I am unable to actually put on the helmet tonight. But that's okay, too.
I seem to remember the damage from Kirk's set being a flat rate per piece or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't care... Well, I take that back. It seems like there actually is a set amount per piece, like the chest is the best or something. Or it may be that this is like a wiki thing. Like, whenever I started the playthrough, I'm not going to be overly concerned with number crunching or anything like that, because that's not the point of this playthrough. But it's something like that.
But we are going to stare at piles of bricks.
Yes! God, yes. That's the whole reason we started this playthrough, wasn't it?
Well, you'd know that better than I would, but I'm down to stare at a few piles of bricks. It'd certainly be more exciting than what I've done all day.
Yeah, my day hasn't been particularly great either, which I've already told you about. A lot of
Yes.
screaming today, a lot of screaming. All right.
We're starting off with the bar fairly low, it seems like.
Oh, that's where I prefer my bars to be. Now, we're here back at the very beginning. Already, there's stuff that I did not notice the first time around. And by the way, for anyone wanting to know where Nick is, he probably is not going to show up tonight. I would hope not anyways. I imagine he's incredibly tired for his own reasons. But, I don't know, we may have some other people on, but, you know, spies enough, Aren't you, buddy? Yeah.
Well, if you ask some people, I might be a little bit too much, I'm afraid.
You know, that's true too, but then again, so am I. Damn these fucking bird watchers. Alright, first thing I've already noticed, this little window I never really paid any attention to. Oh god, I love staring at things.
Oh, here we go. This is what you all came here for, right?
But look at this window. Well, it's not really even a window. It's like it's been plastered up or something, if you can actually see it already, Spy. But there are bars here, but they seem to have been torn apart. Like, I don't know, maybe the cell was here already and it's been retrofitted. As in, at one point, this room used to be isolated, like it was actually exposed to the world. But you'll notice that now both windows actually are completely covered up in sediment. It's almost as though, remember from the very beginning, whenever we first saw the opening cinematic, it actually had the cinematic cut into this window, and it had little rats run past it and whatnot. But now it seems like the window is not actually open, which is pretty unusual. Which makes you wonder exactly how those rats got in there.
It's not open, but there's some space between the bars and the wall on the other side that I think that was where the rats were shown.
It doesn't seem to actually lead anywhere, though.
No, I don't think it does, unless they mean to imply that there's some pathway for rats to take that we can't see. But I think maybe...
God, it's fascinating.
Of additional interest here in this particular room, and it's a shame we can't... unless by some chance you're using that debug version of the game that was leaked on Steam some time ago.
Oh, I would never do that.
I'm afraid, can't clip the camera into that little jar in the corner of the cell. Because were we to do that, I believe it would be visible. I think, well, yeah, there's no way we're going to see it from here, but...
Well, it's not a jar, it's a burlap sack, apparently.
No, the bucket, I mean. You might be able to see it with the binoculars, actually. Yeah, take a look. Inside the bucket.
Yulia, are you there? Oh, wait, she's not. Whoop. But what is so special about this bucket, exactly?
I kid you not. There is, or was, supposed to be a turd in it. Apparently, it was meant to be the latrine of the prison here. And the only reason I'm mentioning this is because somebody some time ago did use the debug version of this game that was leaked on Steam to clip the dev camera inside that bucket. Or inside one of the pots or something in this room. And apparently there was actually a turd in there.
That's the amount of love and effort that they put into this game. Just leaving turds where you can't even see them.
You know, it wouldn't be the first time they've done something like that in this series.
But in addition to poo, there also seem to be 2 mounds of giant pubic hair, which I guess this is supposed to be straw, but who can say, really? I guess it is unusual that there's actually 2 of them. I'm sure that there's no way they put as much thought into it, but maybe there used to be someone else in here with you. Of course, we've talked before about how mysterious this corpse is. I mean, it's here, obviously, to just kind of be here for the sake of carrying the doll that you get to be able to gain access to the painted world. But whether or not it was actually dropped here later on, who the hell knows, who the hell knows. But it is interesting that it's here all the same. Either demons put it here, or Velka put it here, or maybe even after you leave, people from the outside world are still bringing the undead here. Which makes it all the more unusual that this one would have no life in it whatsoever. You would think that it would not actually, you know, it would have some activity left, have residual elements of its own soul, if that were the case. But all the same, little adorable bugs crawling in every direction. Aren't they amazing?
Wait till we get to the Tomb of the Giants.
Oh, yeah. And of
if
course,
you like bugs.
It is unusual that they have these clasps on the wall itself, like, you know, you're hanging people there for the sake of either interrogation or you're hanging them there for the sake of torture. But that's not really what this place is for. It's just for storage. But we talked about this before at the very beginning of the game, that this place could either be an asylum, like it's a retrofitted asylum. Thank you, Snake, for donating $1 into my pants. I just noticed that. That this place used to be an asylum, so obviously it was refitted into a jail of some sorts. So whether this used to be here for the sake of interrogation or torture, we don't know. But if it was an asylum either way, then it kind of makes you wonder.
I think asylum is maybe a little bit more gentle a term than this place really deserves. But the manacles on the wall, they may not necessarily have been for either of those purposes, but just simply for restraint. Because think about what's going on here at the asylum. What they're essentially doing, and I love the choice of the term asylum for this in general, because it implies that that would be a safe place for the undead to go and,
I do wonder what
happy.
the original Japanese word was.
I wonder that myself, but I don't think it's a coincidence that the word asylum was chosen in English, because I think they mean to imply some irony there, where, yeah, it's an asylum for the undead, that they'll be safe there, where what they really mean is, no, we'll be safe from them if we just shove all of them in there.
Kind of has an older, you know, how asylums used to be. Is like, you didn't put them there to be healed. It was the crazy house is what it was.
Yeah, they shut away and forgotten about, unfortunately. Boy, that got real fast.
Political,
Thanks, Eli.
socio-political commentary about the practice of asylums.
Nothing is off limits in these LPs, is it?
It seems like every single one of these rooms is actually exactly the same. Although some of them seem to have shackles in them and some of them don't seem to have any shackles in them at all. Actually, there's a corpse right there. There's a... Ooh, goodness. He has little bugs and stuff crawling all over him. Fantastic. Stuff you don't notice unless you just stop and stare at the walls. Oh, God, yeah. There's some
Isn't
burlap
that why
sacks
we
in
love
there,
these
too.
games?
Well, that's why I like them. If you get Peeve or someone in here, you'd drive him crazy.
Well, not necessarily. He pointed out to me, he was the first one, I think, anyway, to point out the Heineken label texture
in Dark Souls 2.
Dark Souls 2, yeah.
They
so
removed it.
Yeah, they've removed it, but
yeah.
It's too late. We already know.
How typical. Was it really that big a deal that they had to go through the trouble of removing it? I mean, really?
Well, there's always copyright issues, and I have a sneaking suspicion whoever did that didn't even really think about the potential consequences of it. What they do, and you know this as well as I do now from having analyzed these games, in the way that you're doing at this very moment, when they need a text or something, if it's something they don't think people will pay close attention to, they'll often just go on Google Images and take the first image that comes up in a search.
Hell yeah, I do that. This shit's great.
I have a feeling that's probably how the Heineken texture ended up in the game in the first place.
Ooh, what's this? Inside this cell, there's actually light shining down from it. Looks like actually an open window. It seems to be coming from this direction. I can't actually... Damn it, if I could only clip inside the walls like an asshole. Oh well. But it looks like there's actually an open window in this cell, and it's actually shining down an open square of light here on the bottom edge. Huh. It's interesting that there's so many bugs in here, considering that there wouldn't be that much to eat.
Well, I think maybe the bugs themselves are the food source for the
Where do
residents.
they get food from, then? What, do they just magically guide the bugs in there? Here you go, buddies.
Well, some bugs don't need that much food to subsist. I mean, I'm looking at the walls and I see some moss, some algae. There's organic matter, probably some decomposing moss, if nothing else, that might serve as a food source. Then that gets us into, well, what species of bugs consume decaying moss? And then we could just start looking up...
Well, they look like, they actually do look like the sort of bugs, I know this from personal experience, unfortunately. They look almost exactly like the kind of bugs that you will find inside of desiccated remains, like if it's decaying out in the woods or something. for reasons unknown, then
Right.
you would find bugs that look almost exactly like that. Not quite as big, not quite as recognizable, but they would look just like that, actually. Crawling in and out all over the place. Delightful little creatures are they. I don't know what their names are. I just always tell them as corpse bugs. Good old corpse bugs.
We've just received a very scholarly postulation in chat that the bugs eat demon poop.
Of course. Why wouldn't they?
Why didn't we think of that?
And here's a revelation. One of these little open sort of cell window things actually contains a sconce, which I never really thought too much about. Maybe, I don't know, maybe that's how they were actually protecting flames from the undead. Maybe that's what it was. These used to be little niches that they would put those sconces inside of and light the fires. And the reason why that they're barred up now is because the undead were actually trying to get to it. Which would be kind of interesting if they were trying to get to it because they recognized it as being perhaps a source of Estus.
So like a moth to flame, you're saying?
Maybe.
It's possible.
Isn't that interesting? So
or it could just
many
be there for the player's convenience
Shut
for
up.
illumination.
Shut up. God's sakes. Have to ruin everything with your relentless logic.
My relentless...
Oh, here's another one.
Bit of a double standard there, eh?
This one's closed up, but it actually looks like the bars are bent. Which is kind of interesting. It's almost like it's bending away from the flame, too. Either someone was trying to pull the bars free to get at the flame, or the flame itself was actually pushing the bars away.
Or an undead was unceremoniously bashed through the bars by a giant demon.
What, from the inside, next to the torch? I don't think so, my friend. This is science.
Science, you say?
God, I love doing this. I love wasting people's time. And of course, there's little piles of bricks all over the place here. Is it my first pile of bricks? Actually, it's not the first pile of bricks. But it's pretty close. 2 piles of bricks that don't seem to have decayed off of anything. Like they didn't fall from the ceiling. They didn't fall from the walls. They're just kind of here. Which kind of insinuates that they were being used in construction. That maybe this place actually, at one point in time, was actually still being repaired. Oh, goodness. Oh, that Mountain Dew is coming back to haunt me. You shouldn't drink Mountain Dew, by the way. That'll completely destroy your teeth. All right.
As I understand it, teeth are the least of your worries as far as what Mountain Dew destroys, at least if
probably.
the urban legends
Could be
are
worse.
true.
Could be worse. Could be Dr. Pepper, I guess. And here's another pile of bricks. This one actually does look like it decayed off the side of the wall. I'm trying to read chat at the same time. This is one thing I don't have to worry too much about whenever I'm doing this on my own. Everyone's very excited about the bricks, at least.
Yeah, I've got my eye on chat, but it seems most people are just really excited that we're staring at piles of bricks so far.
Well, they are fantastic. I'll give them that. There's a lot you can learn from piles of bricks if you just stop and think about it. I hope Dark Souls 3 has plenty of piles of bricks.
The network test had a few piles of bricks, so I don't think we'll be disappointed when we get to retail.
Well, what do you have to say about those piles of bricks? Nothing? Did you not even think about it? Probably not.
I've been thinking about bricks on and off all day now that you mention it, Eli.
I think about bricks all the time. It's one of my hobbies. I do like these little singular... You know, you would think they would not go through the trouble of doing this. But like this little singular flower, this little white flower that's just sitting here in the middle of nowhere. Like there's little tufts of grass all over the place. It kind of almost looks like... Really, this area doesn't look like it has much growth in terms of grass or anything. Like it's not overgrown. Which I guess makes sense. This is like locked into this middle of this little area. I could really appreciate the attention to the detail with that. Because the outside of edges actually are more rocky. Whereas the closer that you get to the bonfire, then the more organic matter that you actually see. Because I guess seeds are drifting in and growing in this tiny little section. Which is pretty interesting. But anyways, the little bitty white flower just sitting here in the middle of nowhere. They're just peppered here and there.
It's interesting that you bring that up to me because this whole area is stated to be in a northern climate. And when we get out of the asylum itself and we can see the surroundings from the edge of the cliff, it becomes very clear that this is very high altitude. And the plants, the vegetation that we're seeing here are I mean, obviously, with some minor liberties taken, probably not that far off from what you would actually see in a climate like this. Very minimal, small vegetation, some simple grasses at most, maybe a flower here and there, but very barren.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate. We see that, but the second we land in Lordran, I guarantee that we're going to look down and like, oh, there's that flower right there. Fuck us. This the ball that actually rolls down. Like, how did they even get that up there? And whenever you come back, did they reconstruct the wall? No, wait, the wall was still down this, right? But did the Hollows actually go through the trouble of going over here and getting the ball and rolling it all the way back up? That must have been hell on their tiny little fragile stick arms. Those
Well, you
portable
know,
deers.
when you're locked in an abandoned prison for what I assume to be an interminable amount
Yeah,
of
gotta
time,
find something to do.
you get bored. Maybe rolling around a gigantic steel ball is the best they can do to keep themselves entertained.
And as Chad is pointing out, yes, this ball is indeed rusted, or that seems to be the case. Although the rust texture almost looks like leopard spots or something. Maybe not
They did the
best
best they
texture.
could with what they had.
Well, maybe it's a sexy ball. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's dressed up for its lady. Maybe that's what happens. Maybe it has women that do specific functions for it on the streets. Who knows?
You heard it here first, folks.
No, don't start that. Don't start that. It's fine.
This is the lore.
It's fine.
It's canon now, Eli. You've done it.
You know that the pile of bricks where Oscar actually... Ooh, Oscar. He doesn't have a name. Shut up. Oscar actually sits down whenever you first find him. It does look like it used to be a passageway of some kind that actually leads down. Like, it kind of looks like a tunnel that actually is curving inward. Oh, hello, Ghost.
Here?
Yeah, and it's actually curving all the way down, and that there just so happens to be a... Actually, it doesn't even look like it collapsed. I imagine the ceiling, like there's quite a few bricks and wood and stuff that actually collapsed down from the ceiling, but it kind of looks like someone took the bricks and used it to actually pack in this passageway that leads down, wherever this happens to be.
It looks like it was filled in, yeah.
It's pretty neat. Kind of makes you wonder what exactly used to be down there. Maybe this is an entrance to the outside.
In terms of the game lore and immersion, it's entirely possible that this led somewhere. Unfortunately, in cases like this, with respect to the actual game design and the technical aspect of it, clipping through walls in places like this usually rather disappointingly reveals dead ends or nothing.
Not. Yeah, I mean, they're not going to render the entire outside world if you can just clip through. If you can just get through, then you'll suddenly see all of Astora or something like that. Obviously not. But, you know, the fact that they pile this thing of bricks here seems to indicate that they at least thought about it. Like, this could have just been a flat wall. So obviously it seems to me that they put it here. I mean, I imagine they put it here because the concept art shows him kind of reclining on debris. And it looks a lot more impressive that way, so there's that. But there's another one just sitting right beside it. And plus, if you go over here by the cell, the actual door that led out, this seems to be a cell door. This one also is piled up with bricks, but it's done from the inside, not the outside. So it seems like, I don't know, this used to be a cell, then why would the entrance that leads to the outside actually be inside of a cell rather than actually being a real entrance? Pretty unusual.
Well, I mention it because there are certain situations where clipping through walls in places like this does reveal something where either they did intend to have the area be a little bit larger originally and for whatever reason didn't.
That's true.
Or maybe there was something there canonically in terms of the story and they just filled it in to make it a little bit more mysterious. Like, you'll recall in Dark Souls 2 in a couple of places. One below Haid, I believe, on the way to No Man's Wharf.
Are we talking about Dark Souls 2? Well, you would know more at this.
The other in the Lost Bastille, there are doors that can never be opened. They're, like, destroyed. But you can kind of see an area beyond them. It's, I think, more noticeable in the one in the Lost Bastille. And in the case of that particular door, it actually connects the boss room with an area below those hallways with all the booby traps and the Royal Swordsman. So it is part of the level as far as the collision is concerned, but it's just an empty connecting hallway with a broken door on either side that you can never access. So, yeah, some of it is there for visual effect and to make the areas seem more interesting.
It's kind of one of the things, it's kind of an element of any sort of RPG that, I guess as a designer, one, you're trying to kind of create atmosphere by putting things certain somewhere, and sometimes you actually do think about it, but other times you might, like, this goes along with writing too. Like, writing's the exact same way, that you're not going to think of every single little detail. And part of good writing is actually opening things up just enough that readers can actually put their own stories inside of it, but it's not going to change the core theme or the core narrative of whatever you're trying to establish. And sometimes part of that is just leaving little bitty openings that you intentionally, you don't even know where they would lead to. But people can look at it and actually kind of be mystified by it, like, where does that go? And, you know, you can do that, of course, through narrative, through character dialogue, or just briefly mentioning something. It's a lot easier in a visual medium, and especially with video games, it's a lot easier to do because you can just do simple things like this, like filling up a door, and then just never even bringing it up, never pointing it out, just leaving it up to the player to notice it one day, and just take a wild guess. And I'm sure if you brought the level designer himself in and said, what does this mean? He might look at it and go, I don't know, just put it there.
Well, the level designer in this case is President Miyazaki himself, and I guess I should also take a moment
he designs the levels and the layout and everything, but as far as like putting this is a door that leads nowhere, that sort of thing, that could be someone else doing that, as long as it's a flat surface that you can't actually get through.
Oh, you mean like level assets designer,
Yeah.
the set pieces?
Yeah,
okay.
You're actually applying things. And just to get this
yes,
out there, we've already talked before about the guy holding the iron ring. I really don't want to get in that again because holy shit, I remember that part. I feel like I had to re-record that a couple of times just to try to make sense out of the theoretical story I was constructing for that guy. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I just wanted to acknowledge chat was, when I brought up Dark Souls 2, a lot of people were saying, "What? Don't talk about things that don't exist." No, that never happened. Sorry, chat. I didn't mean to say anything blasphemous.
And look at this. You probably can't see it just yet, but looking through this tiny little bitty hole in the wall, you can actually see a hollow holding his little bitty tiny broken sword, just standing there.
Waiting for the stream to catch up.
It's probably the guy, yes, it's the one that's actually standing at the top of the stairs. Kind of interesting that you can actually see through this tiny little thing. I never noticed that here. Pretty cool, don't you think?
Indeed.
And I never really paid too much attention to the actual, I guess, what would you call this, the chapel area? I mean, it's the boss arena, obviously, but the actual, the front of it kind of gives the impression that it's almost like a church or something, because it has this big forward circular sigil on the top of it that seems maybe would be a good place to put like stained glass or something. Might be reading too much into it.
No, not necessarily. The way that all of the windows and whatnot are vaulted like that, I don't know how familiar people are with architectural design, and I myself am not particularly familiar with it. But if you go to a place like a church, you'll notice that the vaulted ceilings and they're very deliberate. What meant to do is to draw one's eyes skyward for symbolic purposes, obviously. But
that's why the ceilings are so fucking tall.
Exactly, yes. And I think that type of architecture is what we're looking at here, which begs the question, what was this building originally? Because you yourself brought up the possibility that it was repurposed from some other type of building and made into what effectively amounts to a gulag from some other building that served a different purpose originally. And it may well have been that this was a house of God, as they say, or some religious building.
It's also possible, this is one thing I was actually considering whenever we were looking at this, that this actually, it may have been that during the time that this was a quote-unquote asylum, whatever the, I get into that again, that actually one of the things that they did was establish a church of the gods for the sake of any of the hollows or the humans that were actually here. Sort of as a means of indoctrination, I suppose, that, you know, even in your, you know, even though you need help or whatever, the gods are still here for you, or something like that.
Yes, we have a suggestion in chat that this facility used to be a McDonald's before it was the asylum, and actually,
Good work, chat.
the
Way to
the
contribute.
amount of dirt on the floor and the general grunge does fit.
Oh man, look at this skybox. That is amazing. I guess this is the only place where you could actually see this, because I can hear that T. You don't have to silence yourself. Show your love for the T. Show it.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
But this is actually the only place I can think of that you can actually see the back of this entire area.
Oh yeah, you can see the seam in the skybox, no less.
Because
They clearly didn't think anybody would look that closely. I think.
well, they underestimate me. They continue to underestimate me.
Well, not just you, but I think they've continued to underestimate the community at large in this regard. They, as I understand it, somebody fairly recently tracked Miyazaki down at one of the public events he attended, Gamescom or E3 or somewhere, and somehow started a conversation with him about the community reverse engineering the games. And from what I gathered, he was blown away by the fact that people are interested enough in picking apart the lore and the general mechanics of these games to bother deconstructing them on the end user side. So FromSoft clearly doesn't have a very strong idea of just how much people love digging into this stuff.
I kind of imagine if you just like locked it down, chained into a wall or something, got him into a discussion. Well, I guess not chained to the wall because this would be too obvious, but if you managed to track him down and had a little meeting with him, there would be a lot of nervous sweating as you continue to dive deeper and deeper into what you consider to be the lore, because I imagine at this point, he probably can't remember even 1/4 of it. And I imagine a lot of it is just like, I saw it in Berserk and I thought it was funny, it's great, I just put it in. Like, oh, so it doesn't mean anything, you're just referencing Berserk? Yeah, oh, how surprising. Man, the Ring guy got it really bad. It almost looks like on the texture, you know, kind of the, what people assume to be the dark hole, or whatever you want to call it. That, it almost looks like writing in a way, the way that it kind of layers across the rib cage. Pretty unusual. Doesn't mean anything, I'm certain, but, you know, it looks kind of neat. So long,
Waiting
Ring
for the stream
Man.
to catch up.
Oh, you'll be fine. It's not important anyways. Off we go. I don't think there's actually anything of great merit to talk about inside of this room that we haven't talked about before. And I guess we can't spend here forever, because it's already been, 30 minutes. It's already been 30 minutes and we have not even left the asylum. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. But this is a great area. I've always loved this area. Mainly because of the outside, really. I mean, it's fine as a tutorial area, obviously. It's interlinked. It makes sense even after you have left the area. Whoops. Didn't mean to do that. But, especially whenever you get to the outside, you really get the impression of what the outside world is like. Because this is the only part of the game which you actually are not inside of the Greater Lordran area. You're just in, quote-unquote, in the north.
The Greater Lordran area. I love that. That sounds like it's some urban subdivision. It's like the Greater New York Metropolitan District.
That's like Detroit. You know, you don't get too close. You don't.
We're comparing Lordran to Detroit now. It's okay.
One thing that I think I've noticed, I've actually pointed this out before in one of the prior. I think whenever we came back to the asylum, but those little creepy statues are actually up here in the rafters as well. Like you can actually see them inside these little niches in the wall. Still have no clue what the hell those things are. Weird tiger golem. They look like they're in so much agony, too. This is what I love about these little guys. We can get a better look at, well, we can look at this one right here. And actually, it looks like there's no backing to the walls in here. It actually just opens up to the outside. So apparently the light was meant to stream in past these little statues. So weird.
There's less chance of you getting stabbed in Lordran than Detroit, says somebody in
Yeah,
chat.
that's probably true.
We sincerely apologize to anybody in chat who actually lives in Detroit.
Did they actually live in Detroit? They're like, yeah, hell yeah. They're proud of it. They're proud of their contribution to the rest of the United States.
I remember somebody once a long time ago compared in a conversation I had about Demon Souls, compared Boletaria to Camden, New Jersey. And I think that was about the most apt description of an area in a Souls game I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
But Detroit's not far. Detroit's not much of a stretch.
But these guys, these weird statues, I love the expression on these guys. They even have, they kind of almost look like little bears, little pigs. These guys are so strange because they're nowhere else in the game that I can think of. I cannot think of anywhere else.
Somebody in chat does actually live in Detroit. Now we're doomed.
Well, he says, fuck yeah. See, it's fine. But one of the things I've noticed about these statues, it seems like it's resting, it actually has a knee elevated. They're obviously supposed to almost be sort of gargoyle-like creatures.
They look...
One leg down, one arm down, the other one has one knee up and another resting, the hand resting on the knee.
The face looks a little bit like Shisa, the guardian lions, or foo dogs, they're sometimes called.
Yeah, that's true. I hope this is not
sometimes
one of those
see.
things. This is one of the minor irritating things. Since it's a Japanese game, sometimes they'll just throw things in there that mean something to them. And then whenever anyone else in the entire planet looks at them, it'd be like if these statues were like the Statue of Liberty or something. And, I mean, even that would be too famous. It would be more like, there's like a city, like in Los Angeles, there's a specific kind of statue that's famous there or something. And they put that in. It's like, what does this mean? It's like, it's something that we knew. Got one of the problems with Japanese games sometimes. That sometimes they'll throw things in like this that mean absolutely nothing to the West. But it's not really their fault or anything. Another thing I wanted to point out real fast with these guys is they seem to be not bisected, but they actually are divided into 3 different parts, almost like they were assembled somewhere else. Oh, the texture is really terrible. But it kind of looks like they were
zoom in on
yes. But it does look like they were actually assembled in 3 different pieces and then assembled, which is pretty strange. Like they weren't chiseled out individually.
It's not unusual for more primitive stonework to be assembled in this way, especially in regions where large blocks of stone of sufficient size to carve something like this from a single block are hard to come by. And based on the color of these statues, they seem to be made from a different type of stone than the rest of the asylum, which makes sense. I mean, you don't necessarily build architectural structures, buildings, out of the same sorts of stone that you would use for a sculpture, but...
That is, one of the things I kind of considered is that maybe within the, of course I'm sure that this is one of those things that they never even thought about, but within the, it may be that this was just like, maybe it's even something that was like lesser known from Demon Souls, and they just had the model lying around for all I know. Although I don't remember ever seeing anything like that in Demon Souls necessarily. But from a canon perspective, it could be that these actually belong to whatever nation is closest, that actually was responsible for constructing this place in the first place. And maybe the one that has retrofitted it actually brought them in or something. But it would make more sense that they had been there for a long time rather than something that had been more recent. But again, they don't really seem to match the stone, so who the hell knows?
Well, if this place was originally a monastery or a church or some religious institution, it would make sense that there were some depictions still here. And your point about Japanese games containing references that don't really mean anything to anybody outside Japan, that may be what's going on, because not just in Japan, but throughout Asia, particularly in China, to place guardian statues outside of important locations, buildings, government buildings, particularly monasteries and just wealthy people's houses. So
it is interesting that they're all facing forward, at least, except for the ones I guess near the bonfire.
Well, the idea there might be to prevent the undead in the asylum from leaving, which might be why they're in the side facing where the undead are kept. But then again, that would conflict with the idea that they'd been there for a long time. So,
yeah. But then again, as we've mentioned before, a lot of kind of Eastern storytelling is not so literal. A lot of the times it's just more of nature of, here's a thing that usually means this. And just by association, then you're supposed to draw this sort of connotation from it. And it's not supposed to be something, you know, that actually has a real literal meaning. It's just
Yeah,
there.
and particularly in the Souls games, some of the things that we see in the environments are really only intended as visual elements rather than to have any specific hidden meaning.
God, the sky battles look so good. It looks really good. These mountains look fantastic. Except for those seams. Don't pay attention to those. You're not supposed to be zooming in at this point. And they're not even... It's not even like a... It doesn't even look like they... whatever you want to call it. They... mirror. They don't even, like, mirror themselves or anything. It almost looks like it's one unique thing that's just stretched around the entire area. I imagine they had to pluck this out from, like, a photograph or something, and then they matte painted some of it out to make it uniform with the rest of the game world.
Oh god, somebody just posted an image or link in chat entitled Plague Interviewing Miyazaki. And it has, for those of you in chat who missed it, it has a picture of Miyazaki saying, "This fucker knows more about the game than I do. I'm running out of answers. I need to find an escape route soon." This is oddly appropriate.
What if he just had that lying around? Oh, look down. Have you ever
Somebody
really looked
was ready.
down?
I have, but what are we referring to here?
There's all the trees all over the place. You can actually make out tiny, itty-bitty little details of the trees in the distance. Oh, look at that. It's fantastic. You can make out their little shadows and everything. Oh, I love you, Dark Souls. You're such a good little thing. But it is interesting that this does... Oh, I'm not going to get so complicated as to this, but it usually is a sort of a tree line in regards to the height at which they will actually grow. And they don't really taper off the way that you would think that they would. So kind of interesting. I guess it does sort of loosely establish a height that this place actually is. Which makes it kind of unusual because you're way above it, and yet there is still vegetation growing here. But no trees.
Well, I think what we've got going on here is sort of like a Far Cry 4 type deal, where regardless of your elevation in the environment, the skybox with the mountains is always prominently visible. And I don't know, I mean, I don't think they really spent a lot of time trying to work out the relative altitude of where we're standing now compared to the surrounding mountains. That's one of the things I was just talking about, where it's more just a simple visual element than actually it was intended to be extrapolated to the extent that we are now.
Of course. But it is really fun to look at it. Just look at it and imagine what lies beyond. Because,
Well,
like, who is it that complains about that all the time? I think it might be Peeve that actually complains about the fact that they never show anything from the outside world. And maybe it's you, I don't know. That's always wanting a game that's actually set outside of the Lordran area. That way you can actually explore, like, Astora and so on.
Oh, it certainly isn't me, but it'd be interesting. The thing is, though...
See, I think that's actually fitting, myself.
Yeah, goddamn motorcycle.
Shh, no, it's fine. Little green peppered eggs say it's fine. I bet these Velka eggs would taste really good.
You know, I'm
taste
glad
like
I'm not the only
sin.
one who's had that thought.
You've just kept that inside for all these years, and now finally... Oh,
been
God,
hiding it.
yes.
All this time, yeah, now you and I can finally speculate on what a Velka omelet would taste like.
What were you saying before the motorcycle interrupted you?
It was such a loud motorcycle that I completely lost my train of thought.
It drove away with your thought alongside it.
Sometimes a complex is a frail thing, Eli. More and more as I get older, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, my internet is not being as stable as I would hope it would be tonight. I haven't
am I
dropped many
cutting
frames,
out?
thankfully. Yeah, a little bit ever so often, but it's kind of the nature of this air-to-air shitty internet. But back at Firelink Shrine, I really have been over this area pretty up and down in the past. Oh, geez. If you ever look too closely at this repeating animation of the giant raven, holy shit, are its eyes disturbing. Like, they're not like beady, like bird eyes, like totally black or anything. They actually have sort of a white around them, and it's just, they're fucking huge, and it's really creepy looking. May not even be able to make it out on stream, but holy shit, these things fucking weird. Love you too, Velka. Love you too. Big booty and all. As far as actually, I guess I pretty much covered everything in here. We've done that in the past. Of course, Frampt is gone, so we can't harass him anymore. And I think I've mentioned this in the past, but I wanted to make sure because people ask this ever so often. But this open chest that's nearby the statue, that is in case you can somehow drop a key item. It will wind up back inside this chest. Which don't ask me how the player is supposed to figure that out on their own.
It's not so much key items, just because I know someone's going to be screaming at us in chat if we don't clarify that, but like the Covenant of Artorias, an item that you need to complete the game, but that you can drop.
All right, that was a dragon. I invited him in as well.
Ah.
But I think we'll bring him in about 5 minutes or so, if I can actually hold on. This is the nature of streaming.
Which dragon are we talking about here?
The inappropriate one.
Okay.
There we go. Because I'm sure that chat will greatly love Dragon. And I'm sure that he'll love what we're doing here.
Oh, I'm sure he will.
Man, if I could think of someone less appropriate to actually get in on a lore stream.
So you're trying to sabotage your own broadcast.
Yes,
I see.
Why not?
Headless Sangeli, you can't break chests in Dark Souls 1, thank goodness. I don't know whose stupid idea that was. Whoever came up with the idea of breaking treasure chests in Dark Souls 2, honestly, should be punched in the face.
Yeah, that was a stupid idea. I was really glad to see that... Like, I went back to Dark Souls 1 after a while, and I accidentally did something to a chest one time, and I panicked, and then I was like, oh no, this game's actually reasonable, never mind.
Oh, God, all these bad dragon links in chat now. Eli, what have you done?
I did what was right for all of us.
I'll trust your judgment on that, friend.
It'll be fine. I'm sure he'll be tired anyways. He surely wouldn't ruin the entire thing.
Great, so in addition to the fact that he prefers Dark Souls 2 over this game, now he's going to be grouchy.
Yeah.
This is going to go
We were both
great.
grouchy whenever we started. I'm sure it'll be fine. We were,
but I went out of my way to take a nap before the stream so that I would at least have some energy to complain.
I think that the majority of these areas are something that we really don't have to worry too much about in regards to viewing everything because I've done it so much before. Especially Firelink, because it seems like I spent a good 20, 30 minutes one day just strolling around looking at things with the binoculars. Like, of course, as we pointed out, there's Blighttown down there. There's the arch tree that rises out that leads down to Ash Lake. Down in that direction, of course, catacombs, graveyard, blah, 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 blah. All the more obvious stuff. And I don't think there's anything particularly mysterious to point out in regards to all this, other than, I guess, maybe the nature of how all the walls are constructed. Just because they're so damn huge. Like, other than the fact that, oh, it's a fantasy game, right? But why exactly would they be so massive other than, I guess, just the fact that it's a fantasy game? Like, what the hell would they be protecting against? And not only that, given the quote-unquote canon that this is 300 years after the whole Ulasil DLC nonsense, which, again, I pointed out is bullshit, but whatever. That's what they say. Then why exactly in those 300 years would they need to build these gigantic walls?
I kind of get the impression the walls were there long before that. And also, I hate to sandbag the immersion with a non sequitur, but somebody in chat just warned you that rather than kill those hollows, you should have Fultoned them.
Yes, I should have Fultoned them. And I should have been playing, Still in a Dream Snake Eater in the process. That's what I should have done.
You could turn down the game music for the next boss fight and just play that via YouTube over it instead.
Well, I'm trying to maintain the illusion that VODs are important. Get out of here, you naughty hollow. Alright, let's bring Dragon in here. Make sure that he can ruin this as
Oh,
good
God.
as possible.
Brace yourselves, everybody. If you hated me...
There you go. He can hop in. I'm sure that he wouldn't... This is going to go on for a while, so I'm sure that he wouldn't want to stick around the entire time.
Hi, Dropout.
I'm so grumpy, and Dark Souls 2 is the best.
I knew it.
Super grumpy.
Here we go.
Man, oh man. Let me
It
tell you the
starts.
ways. No. We've all had a collective sigh of relief over the last beta test. We can all come together again and stop whining over games that suck. We can all do that.
Yeah, 3 actually.
Not
it
a
seems
super
like,
sigh of relief, but you know.
It seems like 3 actually did, for the time being anyways, has pretty much kind of unified most people. I really have not heard much negativity about it.
I was really worried. I mentioned this, I think the last time I was here, Plague, I mentioned that it didn't matter if Dark Souls 3 was good or bad. It was going to hurt the community again by splitting it. Because that's what all the other games have done, is split us up into sides on sides. But as Franz said at one point, everybody is seeing Dark Souls 3 kind of the way they want to. Oh man, look at all these things.
It's just like Demon Souls.
Dark Souls 2.
It's just like Dark Souls 2.
Yeah, or some people.
It's just like Kingsfield.
Yeah, like it's, and I think that's such an amazing thing that all these people are seeing what they want, and as long as they keep that at the full release, we'll all be happy again, and we can all play nice. Isn't that gonna be great? Of
course, I didn't get to actually play it because I'm not a PS or whatever person. Hey, we are the experts. But from what I saw, I was actually pretty pleased with it too. I don't really have many things to comment on it in regards to that, but still looked pretty good.
I think too. Well, I think the fact that we were able to see PvP in this beta as opposed to the Bloodborne that we did not, I think that we can all speculate in the right direction instead of all of us going, well, you know, he did hit the monster a lot. Maybe we can hit people a lot.
He charged the hit for the monster and it did the damage.
But what does that mean for PvP? We don't know because we can't see it. We have no idea how that does with other people. But just seeing as how in Dark Souls 3 now we know what happens when you do certain things against certain people, and what the poise is, and how it feels,
the poise,
and how the wind. Like what it is, and that's amazing. Like the hyper armor and all that. I'm happy with it. I really am.
Well, I think
really,
we definitely got a much better network test experience this time around than we did last time, and even the time before that, and definitely more valuable information out of the network test. At least assuming the network test does not turn out to be completely different from retail, which I hope to God it doesn't. But
I don't think it necessarily will. I do think things will be changed, and I hope things are changed. There's some stuff that we don't like about the beta.
Right.
Not to super hype it and make it, oh my God, it's the greatest thing ever. But
I'm
it's
sure there'll be
that
plenty to complain about.
Yeah, we've got plenty of things to bitch about the beta, but at the same time, so much more good was shown to us in that beta than like the entirety of Bloodborne, for at least PvP wise, at least PvP people, which is going to be the longevity of a game.
Right.
Yes,
is what that's going to be.
Okay,
so,
hold on for a second. I need to get this out here. One Dragon,
God.
I don't know if you know what you jumped in on, but I organized this stream in particular on YouTube.
You didn't even tell him before you invited him to the call?
Why would I?
I
Shut
don't
up.
know this.
But I organized this on YouTube because we're actually going back through. This is going to be one of the final parts in my LP that's been going on for the past year. So we're actually going through the entire game, just looking at things to stare at, like piles of bricks, all that good lore stuff I know you love so much. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is that, for those of you not in the know, this is Dropout Dragon. Dropout Dragon is traditionally, not what the fuck am I even saying? But he's known for doing Dark Souls 2 PvP primarily, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, if you want to, really, people, can trash Dark Souls 2 or whatever, and I do too, but I actually really like this PvP for what it was. It was not perfect, but it's a lot better than just circle backstabbing everyone like every single fight, and that's how every single fight ends. So if you actually want some... Really, if you think about it, there's not many good examples of PvP in the Souls games. Like, Demon Souls is what it was, obviously. Like, it turns into a clusterfuck, but it's still kind of fun. Dark Souls 1, you can, it's like, well, it kind of just degenerates into backstab fishing or parry, spam, or whatever. And people can kind of say that about Dark Souls 2, and Bloodborne is definitely, like, who wants to bother, right?
Bloodborne was not designed around PvP, no.
But in a way, it's like Dark Souls 2 is the best example of PvP that we've gotten out of the Souls games so far, and that's kind of disturbing.
Be careful. A lot of people don't like that. And that's very unpopular.
You know what, though? We're all about controversial opinions here on Plague's stream, right, Plague?
That's right.
And actually, I was discussing this with some of my colleagues at Future Press a little bit earlier today, and one of them brought up what I think is a very good point, which is that part of the reason there is so much discord between the PvE and the PvP in Souls games, and part of the reason the PvP has just been so horribly balanced up to now, or so broken in some way, is because PvE really requires a completely different set of balancing from PvP. And to integrate both into the same experience seamlessly is going to result in some compromises and sacrifices having to be made. As opposed to a game like, for example, Call of Duty, which I shall deride to my dying day, but even I have to admit that what it was designed to do, it does well. I mean, that game's PvE is an afterthought. Let's not make any bones about that. That is a PvP game, and it does PvP damn well. You know?
It does. I mean, there's a reason it's popular. Whether you think it's casual or not, there's a reason it's popular. Because they know what they're doing, and they put out their consistent stuff every year, and it's not going to be some big experiment. It's just, this is the game. This is what you liked before, so we kind of changed it slightly, and here it is.
Yeah, it's a shooter button.
Yeah, now it's in the future, but now it's not. But now it's in the 70s, but now it's not.
Call of Duty in the 70s. Now you've got this image in my head of guys running around with machine guns and bell bottoms and disco suits.
There is something to be said the fact that
that was DLC, people would have bought it. Yeah, I would have played more Black Ops if that was the case. If I could just get me a fro and like a boombox over my shoulder, that would have been it. It would have been over. But just so
audience.
Yeah, just so chat and YouTube understands, because I know this is a primarily Dark Souls 1 thing, so you guys know. I played the hell out of Dark Souls 1. I played the hell out of Demon Souls. I started on Demon Souls. I have put more hours into those games than I want to admit. I did the math and found out since Demon Souls came out, 27% of my life since then has been spent playing a Souls game.
27% of your life? What are you,
27% of my life.
He's 5 years old.
Souls.
He's just ahead of the curve.
Since Demon Souls has come out, has been spent playing a Souls game. Since it has come out.
Okay, I glossed over that
see what
part,
I'm saying?
probably subconsciously.
Yeah, since it has come out. I know you just want to call me 5, but no. That's a lot. The only reason I prefer and play Dark Souls 2 so much is because it's the newest one that works. Bloodborne does not work for PvP. Just does not work.
How fast are you going to drop 2 if
does.
3 ends up being exactly what you want it to be?
I don't know. But all I can say is that's to explain myself in that regard why I prefer and still play Dark Souls 2. That is why. It's time.
And that is a good reason.
So, and I know a lot of you guys had a bad experience with Dark Souls 2. We all did. I mean, that was a very terribly balanced game.
I'm raising my hand right now.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And you were there in there the deepest.
Oh yeah, I mean I survived the metas.
Actually, both
there.
Because Spy had to deal with the guide crap, and you're the one that actually has to play it.
Well, don't get me wrong. Working on the guide for Dark Souls 2 was a privilege, and I learned a lot, and I'm still glad I did it. It was more my experience with the game itself as a gamer that left me really kind of cold.
Yeah, the experience of actually going through and doing testing or writing a guide or whatever is a lot different than it actually is actually just playing through the game on its own.
Well,
By the way, sorry, been interrupted. My lore boner is really big right now, but this fucking bucket. What the hell is this shit all over it? Is that cloth? Is that supposed to be cloth, or is this wood that broke off? Plus, why is there a big rope tied around it? What is this? This is vines?
Age-old question.
It's old. It's a jerry-rigged bucket.
Yeah, he's petting the bucket. The fuck
is
that?
The bucket Yulia, or is his sword Yulia?
I wanted to thump Marcus in the head whenever he said that in his playthrough. Like, I think he got pissed off at me, too, because I left a almost angry comment in his comment section explaining all the reasons why it's a lot better if he's, like, petting an animal that no longer is alive, rather than just, oh, it's just a bucket.
Poor Marcus.
Take that, Marcus. Okay, sorry. Go on.
But all I will say is, if you give it a second chance, you might enjoy it. That's all I'm saying, because it has been heavily balanced since you might have been touched in a bad place.
Yeah, the whole Resident, whatever that is, that's not
gone.
quite. Yeah, that's not around.
That's
anymore.
gone. That's gone.
Why did they even think that was a good idea?
Well,
That
I don't
was
think they
insane.
actually put much thought into whether or not it was a good idea in the first place.
Yeah.
I remember the patch notes where they said fixed abnormal amounts of damage from certain katanas. I said, abnormal? Can you not do math? Is that the problem for you? Is it just strange that you put these big numbers together and it added up to something too high? Is it weird? Is it abnormal to you?
3,000 damage. 3,000 damage from a single attack in a Souls game against another player is a bit excessive. But then
fucking normal?
that
Just a
goes
little
back,
bit.
That goes back to what I said before about how trying to balance PvE and PvP in the same game as like coexisting experiences is not an easy thing to do. And I feel like from what we saw in the Dark Souls 3 network test, they are finally at least closing in on getting it better than they have in the past. So, I mean, I don't dare hope that they'll get it perfect.
And
But,
it's not like 3 is not going to have tons of issues whenever it first comes out with PvP, I'm sure. There's going to be something.
right. But Demon Souls and Dark Souls 1 had tons of issues as well, and as far as public sentiment seems to be concerned, at least as far as I can tell, they seem to be the best liked games out of the entire series, Dark Souls 1 in particular.
And it should be. I mean, this really, it started everything. But what we have to do is also not, you can't look at something with your super nostalgia glasses and realize that, you know, oh yeah, this is the greatest thing ever. Yeah, it was. But now it's okay to move on and see what we can do with this, and don't just hate it because it's kind of new.
Well, and also, it kind of encompasses what I have to deal with all the time, and that I'm always bitching about something, right? But at the same time, like, whenever information about 3 just started coming out, there were a few things that I was complaining about in regards to, like, backstab, phishing, and so on. A lot of people didn't even want to talk about it. It was just like, shut up, stop talking about it. And you have to deal with that shit all the time. And of course, people go through the honeymoon phase before the game even comes out. And then it just takes forever to people to just get over that. To the point where you can actually start talking about it. And even with Dark Souls 1, people still are, in a way, stuck inside of the wedding phase or the honeymoon phase. And they just can't bring themselves to even say, okay, maybe this was bad.
Well, rose-tinted glasses are a thing, especially,
Oh, yes.
I think, yeah, with games that are as popular as the Souls series. And the unfortunate fact of the matter is, I don't think any of us are completely immune to it. When Dark Souls 2 first came out, even after having spent as much time as I did working on the guide, my experience working on the guide was completely different than actually playing a game in retail. I was focused on very compartmentalized tasks, fairly individual and specific things that prevented me from being able to see the big picture, right? So when we got to retail, I still didn't really have a clear idea of the big picture, and played through my entire first run of the game with those rose-tinted glasses on, because I still didn't really see the issues that it had for what they were. So,
Well, whenever you're writing the guide, you only see very specific areas, right? Like, I
Yeah.
don't know what percentage of the game you actually worked on, but it was,
well,
there's no
100%,
way that it,
but
well, not like every single area, right?
I contributed to bits and pieces from every
Oh, yeah,
single
yeah, that's
area.
true.
Yeah, like the process is complex, and I don't want to bore
Yeah,
our
yeah,
viewers with
it's-
it. But even getting to see everything behind the scenes, people ask me if I think that affected my enjoyment of the game, and no, I wish it had affected my enjoyment of the game a little bit more, and then that way maybe I wouldn't have had those rose-tinted glasses on from the beginning, because playing the game in retail is totally different. For one thing, the only PvP I got while working on the guide was against developers. And, you know, you'd think that developers would be good at their own game, but I must have gotten the interns whose main job it was just to deliver coffee to the head offices or something.
Somehow I kind of
Because,
doubt it. I
like,
would
the-
love to think that they were the PvP pros, and they showed up, we're going to kick this guy's ass.
The 3 or 4 PvP matches I got on the dev server, like, 2 of them, the guys just walked off cliffs and died. The third
That's pretty
one,
bad.
the third one was a naked fist fight in the gutter, which resulted in about 15 minutes of punching and Estus chugging, and then the guy just debugged himself through a wall and vanished.
Well, maybe they have different priorities.
Well,
It's
yeah,
a game that you can
GG.
play the way you want.
But the point is, working on a game in development is not a retail experience.
Gives you a little bit of
I'm
a
sorry.
smack.
I want to debug through walls and piss people off. That sounds great.
It
Do
does.
that.
That's the whole appeal of something like Chameleon. This is as close as you can get.
GG. No re.
Okay, briefly, while I'm sitting here on top of this tower, if we can continue the shitty lore discussion a little bit more. It's kind of unusual that this is, I guess, is one of the highest points that you can actually get to on the wall, other than Anorlando itself. And just looking around, yeah, it looks like this is the highest point you can reach other than the church itself, the bell tower. And looking down from here, other than a bunch of textures that don't seem to be behaving themselves, of course, it kind of looks like this just leads off into a deep abyss. Like this entire area is, really the whole area, if you think about Ulusil, for example, a lot of it is nothing but a bunch of deep, ruinous caverns, which could have been the result of Manus, or maybe this whole place was like this the entire time. But either way, it looks like this entire area... Oh, shit, what the hell's that? What the hell's that? There are fucking houses over there.
Yeah, what you're looking at from up here is set pieces that were never meant to be examined quite that closely. They do this in all of the Souls games, where they set up a bunch of 2D or vaguely 3D with really low res texture environmental set pieces
Amazing.
off in the distance. That they're layered. They are layered in
No
three
way.
dimensions to create the illusion of true three-dimensional world, but if you were to actually fly out and examine them up close, proportionally, their size wouldn't even be correct in a lot of cases.
No, they're not
Oh,
trees,
so
they're
like the-
houses. Come on.
Like the Disney Castle effect.
Yeah,
Exactly.
That's a good. That's a great comparison.
Yeah, I didn't even. That is a good way to look at it. Yes, it's like looking at the Disney Castle. If you were to go to it up close, you wouldn't even be able to fit through the door.
What, you think they're going to build a whole damn castle? But it kind of works that way when so as
Well,
we
they've
talk
got
about.
the money.
Well, yeah, they do. That's for damn sure. Especially they're going to have lots of money coming up here soon.
In
Oh, yeah, they
chat,
will.
this changes everything. I'm so sorry. I just ruined everybody's experience in
Oh,
the
this
Souls
is
game
so
by revealing that.
But this little mountain thing, like you can see the silhouettes, right? If I'm even looking on the stream right now, but like
It's catching up.
some of these things, they don't even really look like trees, and they don't look like jagged pieces of the mountains or anything. So I wonder if they actually were trying to imply that there were houses back here, or if it's just, I don't know, the geometry is so fucked up. Well, of course, it's not something they give a shit about, but I'm still curious as to what the hell they were thinking.
It looks like a tree. There you go. And it's whatever. All right. Next area.
No!
Ta-da.
Look at these bricks. Look at them. Really, if you think about it, why are there so many bricks that are... I guess the reason why there's so many bricks that are shattered all over the place is because the Taurus demon was here and he was fucking everything up in the process. And the reason why that they're...
to be that big and walk through that area.
Yeah.
Just say.
Don't ruin my fun. But even on the top tower, it looks like it's been shattered from him jumping down so many times. I'm glad we put a stop to that. He was a little rascal. I wish that you could actually PvP in this little stretch right here, where you fight the Taurus demon.
That would be cool. I agree. That would have been fun.
You played Dark Souls 1 on console, didn't you? You played Dark Souls 1 on console, right, Dragon? You don't have it
on both
PC?
PC and
Oh, okay.
And PS3.
Okay.
So.
I was curious if you still
I
had it
did
installed.
the PvP. I did that. I had to be on both.
There were a lot of wasted opportunities for PvP spots in this game, unfortunately, not the least of which was Ash Lake.
Yeah.
I know. And that was such a disappointing thing. It was like, oh, this is the Everlasting Dragon. That's a PvP Covenant thing where I put the sign down and people pick me up. Oh
And
man,
it
when I
even
join
has
this, there's
it
gonna
has
be
a
tons of
covenant
stuff.
system for PvP right there.
Bam. And then what? Nothing. You don't see anything. I was like, damn it! I was gonna have a whole arena fight on the sandbar over here. It was so cool.
One of the saddest things.
While the
and
Hydra
actually,
flies overhead.
I
That would have been a
suspect
cool screenshot.
probably the reason why Ash Lake ended up not being invadable was that it was originally the entire zone was supposed to be a boss area, and or a large chunk of it was anyway, and that was changed at some point in development. And I believe the ancient dragon that leads the Covenant was supposed to be the original boss of that area. I'm not 100% clear on that, but I suspect that when they changed it, they neglected to change the invasion flag for the area, meaning the entire zone is still flagged as a boss room and thus cannot be invaded.
I wonder if you could actually mod the game in such a way. I don't know.
I'm
if this
sure you
specific
can. I mean, that's you have.
Oh yeah,
have
you
guys
can. There's
that are-
with Cheat
invading-
Engine.
Yeah.
I mean,
There's
what
Dark
was
Souls
it?
2, there was a way to fight in Majula. I mean, that was a way to do that.
Yeah, I just wonder if it's something that you could actually control without it, like someone needing the same version of the game afterwards.
Via Cheat Engine, yes, and there are numerous examples of people doing that. There was a playthrough that 4 people did of Dark Souls 1 where they summoned each other to one host's world. They forcibly changed a red phantom into a cooperator, and each character was themed after one of the 4 Knights of Anne Orlando. So they had Goff, Kieran, Artorias, and Ornstein, and all of them were doing like a 4-person co-op playthrough using super duper hacks. The example of people doing PvP in Majula is another good one. But yeah, no, it's possible. And it's amazing how exploitable the game code is if you know how to use Cheat Engine. Because FromSoft, for whatever reason, does not
that we
do a
do.
very good job. Well, no, not that we do, or that we would ever condone such a thing. But
Oh, no,
FromSoft-
terrible.
FromSoft
No one ever
does not
uses
do a very
that.
good job of encrypting their game data. And from having talked to a number of people who are more prominently involved in this sort of thing, like Hellkite Drake, who is a very good friend of mine, it's abundantly clear that they never expected anybody to attempt to reverse engineer this stuff because they put almost no protections in place to prevent it.
Oh man, you think someone would do that? Go on the internet and cheat? Nobody would do that. No one does.
That would be wrong. That would impact the
that's-
fun of other human beings.
Nobody would ever do that on the internet. No. Lies
Holy
and
shit.
slander.
Boulder Knight pushed my shit in.
Waiting for the stream to catch up.
You little Perry fishing bitch.
Thank you for building the anticipation.
It is amazing to me that in this game, the first area, like, think about the mechanics on your controller. Like, you can parry, you can guard,
Wow.
you can, those mechanics. You can use the shield, you can parry, you can guard, backstabbing, riposting, and so forth. Think about the later areas of the game and how often you actually use that on anything. Like, it almost never comes up in some areas, especially like Izalith. You're not gonna parry jack shit in Izalith. You're probably not gonna block jack shit in Izalith. You're not gonna backstab jack shit in Izalith. And I'm trying to think, what's another, like the catacombs. You're not gonna do anything there either.
Izalith was slapped together in 10 minutes, though. Let's not...
Yeah,
Well,
that's why
let's
it's not a
not
super
mince our
great
words here.
example. But it's just amazing to me. These Souls games usually kind of goes that way. It really less so in Demon Souls. But like the core mechanics that are tied to the controller, they just kind of forget about them halfway through. It's like, you don't need those anymore. Stop worrying about it. Just
Well,
go back
I
to
think-
flipping.
Everything's super large and will break your guard immediately, but
Yeah.
you know, whatever. You should.
That's just about is that I think the usefulness of some of these mechanics suffers as you progress later into the game, just because enemies get bigger and badder, and suddenly you can't parry or backstab everything anymore.
Well, that's my point,
like you
though.
can in the parish.
Because they never, like, the upward scaling of the difficulty of the enemies relies on their size, their damage, and their ability to completely ignore basic mechanics. Like, they never expand them.
Yeah, most of the Souls games do that. I mean, you see that in Bloodborne too.
Yeah.
It's enemies start doing so much damage to you, you'll never recover that just spamming against them.
Yeah,
You'll
people
never-
say that all the time.
Stupid mechanic.
How many times
And
did
it's
I
just-
have to say that to people? It's like, no, you can't just hack through everything at the end
Useless
game.
mechanic. Yeah, it's a useless mechanic.
Yeah,
It's not
it
very
even
good.
actually ends up being detrimental because the game seems to be balanced around the idea of, well, if you're aggressive, then you can just gain it back, but you can't.
You can't be aggressive. To
So you
some of
end up
those.
just
You-
taking more damage than they're supposed to.
This is
and
one of
it's
the
not
things.
like they changed the bosses. It's not like the bosses are any different from the rest of the Souls bosses, because even though they're a little bit more aggressive, but they still have the weak moments where you're supposed to hit them and moments where you're not. And if you put that into the way the bosses work, then there's no way you're going to recover health that quickly. It's not going to happen.
Well, and the
You're
Bloodborne
gonna do it the
bosses,
same way.
a lot of the
Back
Bloodborne
up and-
bosses are also a lot spammier in terms of,
Oh, hell yes,
they
they are.
use AoEs every 5 seconds, or they have an attack that does a 360-degree spin that you have a window about 1/10 of a second to quick step through, and that kind of thing, which are designed specifically around the regain system. And the idea that you will take damage and that you will have to press your advantage to get it back. But yeah, regain, I mean, but if it recovered any more health than it does, PvP would be even worse in Bloodborne than it is.
That's something that
It is,
worried
and-
me very early in Dark Souls 3 because they were showing off, I guess, as fast as they could get it. Like whatever the final boss was actually called in the demo, whatever you want to call it. It has a second phase in which it actually starts spamming like crazy, like twirling like a Bloodborne boss. And they were showing that off without giving it any context. And I thought, oh shit, they're turning this into Bloodborne 2. But thankfully,
and
whenever
that's-
we got into it, it was fine.
Well, it's like what you said. It in the very beginning of the game, there's tons of ways to use the tools at your disposal, effectively. There's tons of ways to do it. I mean, even in Bloodborne, the townsfolk were like that was perfect. The regain system worked for those people.
Yeah.
They stunned when you hit them.
It was almost too
and you
good
got
for
your
them.
health back. It
Since
was.
you could just
and
face fuck
but
everything.
as soon as you get to the big werewolf guys, no, don't do that.
Yeah,
'cause
then
they
it was
bite
like,
you down.
then's when it
And they
actually means
hyper
something.
armor.
Because it was
Yeah, that's-
supplementary.
Yeah, and that's when it starts going downhill from there, and that mechanic just doesn't work anymore.
It's funny, there are some
worked at a
things in
certain part of
Bloodborne
the
that I
game,
think would actually work better in the Souls games. Like the regain mechanic would work really well in the Souls games if used correctly. And
in most areas, yeah.
Yeah, with poise, I think, because the super armor system that they used in Bloodborne was ill-suited to an aggressive playstyle, since everything would freaking stun lock you. Like, you take a single hit, one of the Yharnam townsfolk sneezed on you, oh no, I'm staggered for 1.5 seconds.
and even though this is
It's over now.
even though this is completely thematic, I think it's so weird. Bloodborne, like if you hit B, you sidestep, or you backstep, or you forward step, right? That would, thematically, it has no real impact since it's just iframes, right? But that would make way more sense in a game in which you're wearing nothing but armor. Whereas rolling on the ground like an idiot and ninja flipping would be something that would be more appropriate for Bloodborne. It's like they have them reversed, thematically. Like, it should be sidestepping in the Souls games, and in Bloodborne, it should be rolling in the dirt.
Well, I spent quite a lot of time in Bloodborne rolling in the dirt, I'll
I
have you
think we all
know.
did.
So, Eli,
what's the
we are
lore
getting
of this
demands
Bloodborne?
from chat to, yeah, people want lore.
What's the
I
lore
know,
of
I
this
know.
room here? There's some lore in that room you missed.
But I kind of made up my mind, because as Spy knows, we're going to be going back through these areas anyways, because we have work to be done. Dark secret
Always more work.
work. But I'm just going to run through up until probably Anor Londo. And then after we do that, we're going to skip back down to Firelink and take care of some business, as it were. You damn boulder.
Casually, you're pushing through the game as a higher level, and these guys are not, and you're just making all the crap mistakes because you don't. You've got.
Nah,
no
I'm not
idea.
even paying attention.
Because
even worried about it.
in Dark Souls 1, you can face fuck enemies and laugh at the consequences.
Well, especially when you have
You
20
can.
goddamn Estus Flask charges. Whose idea was that?
Some casuals probably.
It's one of those things where I think they casually underestimate how good the players can actually get at the game.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Just like, you know, they casually underestimate how many hackers exist in video games. Casually underestimate that as well.
I don't think
They
they're even
casually
aware.
do a lot of things. FromSoft does a lot of stuff very casually.
I don't
Oh,
think they
whatever.
have any concept of the hacking that goes on.
I just
Like,
love imagining them just almost thinking about things. Do you think it's a good idea to give this 1,000 damage? Whatever, I don't fucking care.
Well, yeah, whatever.
What could happen?
It's fucking like it's far in the game anyway, right? Like it's not like they get it in the first level. Yeah, right? Right? Yeah, just put it in there.
It's primarily
Whatever.
a single-player game, stupid. Just do whatever.
Shut up,
Except-
Rick. Nobody fucking PvPs.
except,
Nobody
yeah.
does that.
I love that the developer's name is Rick.
Like
I don't
Rickard.
care.
I'm gonna
I'm not
enjoy
gonna
killing
pretend
that
to
fuck.
be able to pronounce their names, so I'm just gonna move on with it. They now
Rikazaki.
have American name. Rikazaki and
Rick Azaki.
Rikamoto. Rikamoto and Rikishima, and we'll just go from
I'm-
there. And
I'm afraid, Plague, you have just started a new meme.
Rika,
Be a Rick. No, that's terrible. That's terrible. Okay,
Rikishima, Rikamoto. It's all gonna be there.
I love these
And,
gargoyles.
and then just Gary at the end.
Venom chosen undead. I like that.
Punished Miyazaki. Rikazaki. excuse me.
Punish Miyazaki. Thanks, chat. I needed that. That brightened my day.
I think my favorite Miyazaki meme, other than the "your build is trash" LMAO, other than that one, is a picture of Miyazaki and he looks all kinds of philosophical, and he just looks, and the quote under it is "Please understand," and that's it. that's all it is. Please understand.
Didn't that originally start with Nintendo? That quote that
I
they
don't-
used
I-
all the time when something went wrong, and that they just please understand, and then people just started applying it elsewhere.
It was so good. I don't even care where it came from. Just watching him and knowing how pissed off a community we could be. Please understand. I had a vision. Like,
I didn't
I
really,
love that.
I didn't consider this until I started playing, but going through the game human is not really amounting to much of anything, considering I've beaten every boss in the game anyways. So what was the point? No one's going
Yeah,
to be able to
Chad,
evade
I-
me anyways.
I thought it was Iwata who popularized that phrase.
yeah, I'm sure it got popularized with someone else, but like seeing Miyazaki, that was perfect. It just made so much sense to see him say it. It was, oh god, I loved it.
I mean,
Oh.
I think we might have heard that from FromSoft once or twice in patch notes up to now as well.
Abnormal, please understand.
I wouldn't be the
Abnormal.
least bit surprised.
I kept waiting for a
Please
Dark Souls 2
understand.
patch note thing to start out being just like, you know, dot, 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 and then followed by a bunch of numbers.
Please understand. Abnormal.